What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the Self-Made Podcast. This is a podcast for men who want to build a strong physique, a disciplined mindset, and a life they are proud of. So let's get into it. In this week's episode, what I want to talk about is something that was extremely important in my own journey, and it was a massive realization for myself when it did happen. And I think understanding it, first of all, is going to have a massive effect on your ability to progress, to change, and just see things for the way they are. And what I want to talk about is your environment, because your environment is going to have, again, as I said, a massive effect on your journey as a whole and how it affects absolutely everything that you do on day-to-day basis. So first things first, what is environment? What does it really mean? And I think the main thing to understand that, yes, it is a place. It's where you are, let's say where you live, where you work, where you spend majority of your time, but it's also going to be the people that you are surrounded by, like your family, could be your girlfriend, could be people that you work with, could be the people that you are around in your gym, let's say, people that you train with. So all of those things are going to have an effect on you, as much as you like it or not. And it's extremely important to be aware of it as to how all of those things actually affect you, because they very easily can affect you. But I think if you are a lot more aware of it, it's much easier to deal with in a lot of ways. I think something that is important to understand is that, in order to grow as a person, whether that is your physique, your mindset, your life as a whole, you're going to have to change. There's just no doubt about it. Like, you cannot stay the same and expect your life to look different. And that is something I think so many people overlook. If you want a better physique, you want a better life, you want better habits, you have to accept the fact that things will have to change. And part of those things is your environment and how you deal with it. And the main thing to point out is a lot of the time change brings resistance. And a lot of the time it's going to be people that are the closest to you that are going to maybe say things that you don't necessarily want to hear, that you feel like, are coming from a very negative place. It could be something as simple as your parents making a comment about what you're doing when it comes to your eating. It could be, let's say, your girlfriend wanting to go out and go for a meal out, and obviously the food not being really in line with what you're trying to do. Could be wanting to stay in and sit there, watch telly all day and order a takeaway, whatever it may be. Could be your mates that are asking you out for a pint and you saying, you know what, no, I'm trying to focus on this instead. I'm going to try, avoiding alcohol for a couple of weeks. A lot of the time, you might get pushback as to, why you're trying to do this. Why would you bother? Why are you trying to change it? Find the way they are. The people will make you feel like you're nearly wrong for doing it, if that makes sense, or that you should be able to have fun, which you probably are. But sometimes those things don't necessarily line up with your goals, which is absolutely fine. And that's something that I want you to remember. Just because people don't share the same goal as you and might not understand where you're trying to go and why you're trying to go there, pushback. Your mates might just say, oh, come on, just go out and have one, like, you'll be grand, it's not the end of the world. It's understanding that sometimes you just have to say no and stand your ground about things. And I think the very important thing to keep in mind is communication, and that communication is key, especially when it comes to people that are close to you. and just letting them understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why you're making those decisions, rather than just saying no all the time. Like, give them an understanding as to why you want to do these things, why it's important to you that you want to get to the gym, let's say 4 times a week, or you don't necessarily want to go out and eat greasy meal, or maybe you don't want to have a few points, because deep down that will essentially take away from your progress. And it doesn't mean that you will never have those things and you'll never do that. It's just having a little bit of time of focus, and I think that is something to keep in mind, that it is fine. For the next few months, you are going to lock in a little bit more. You're going to stay on point with your diet, with your training, and you're not going to miss a beat. And don't feel bad for it, because no one's ever going to feel bad over going out every weekend and eating out, and let's say ordering food from the deli every single day. You know what I mean? So again, don't feel bad for flipping the switch a little bit here and going the opposite way. So you have to explain to people that this is something that's important to me, and I want you to respect it. People will react negatively sometimes, and to be completely honest with you, I think a lot of the time it will come from their own insecurities. Let's say, as I said, your mates wanting to ask you to go out drinking with them, and you saying no, or try to convince you as to why you should go out and whatnot. And a lot of the time it will come down to the fact that they're possibly unable to stick to the plan, and might tell you there's no point, why would you bother. Your growth, your positive choices, it reminds them of the fact that they are not doing it, that they are not making the right decisions as much as they would like to. And they will always try to reel you back in, and make it feel like this is what we do is normal, this is what we want to do. That change can be hard, when people are used to you being a certain way for as long as they know you, and all of a sudden you're trying to change, trying to become someone else. Again, that they might not necessarily like that change, and point out to the fact that you are changing. But again, I want you to remember that change is not a bad thing, and as long as you're changing for the better, you're doing the positive thing, don't second guess yourself on it. Especially if you feel good about it, if it makes you feel good, it makes you feel better, it's a positive change. Don't let people bring that self-doubt into it. Something that was absolutely massive for me when I was going through the biggest change of my own was actually finding positive people that will support your goals, because there's going to be people that again might know you for however many years and know you for the way you have been, and might not understand why you want to change. But there is going to be people that you can find in spaces that have similar goals, that have similar ambition, and are doing a very similar thing to you, and they will never question what you do and why you do it. They will understand and support you in that sense. And this is why I always try to encourage people, and obviously the lads that I work with, to go out and train with each other, spend a little bit of time with people that have the same goals, have similar struggles, because you'll be able to actually understand each other a lot better, rather than the people that just might not have the same mindset, the same goals, and aren't going through what you are going through. Because at the end of the day, having positive people around you who support you on your journey is going to make things 100 times easier for yourself. Allow you to understand that, yes, there's people that are going to try to pull you away from it, but there's also people that completely understand where you are going and why you're doing it, because they have the same goal. And the same goes for places. So your environment, in terms of where you spend your time. And sometimes, yes, there is going to be things that you can't necessarily control right now. Maybe things like where you live or where you work, and people there not necessarily being supportive, or the environment where you are right now not necessarily being the best for your goals, but it doesn't mean you can't eventually, let's say, change that. To give you an example, I used to live with my mates, and we used to live in a 4-bedroom house of 4 lads living together, 4 young lads living together, and it was a great time. Like, was probably the best laugh I've had, over those years living there. But if you ask me whether it was the best thing for my goals, absolutely not. It was late nights, ordering a lot of takeaways, just unhealthy routines all around. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you can't eventually change that. And I want you to always remember that you are in control, that you always can make the right decision. No matter what someone else is saying, no matter where you are, you always have the power to make the right decision and make sure that you do not drop off the plan. Even if, let's say, you live with your mates and they're not on the same page when it comes to training, when it comes to mindset, when it comes to improving yourself, it doesn't mean that you cannot still wake up at the right time, eat the right food, get to the gym, and look after yourself in that sense. So that's something that you have to remember, that at the end of the day, it's down to you, the decisions that you are going to make, regardless of your environment as well. And to make things easier for yourself, again, as much as you can find people around you that might have similar goals, it goes the same for the places that you spend your time in, like training in a better gym that has better equipment, has people that have similar goals and are training harder. And again, you can feel the energy, you can see what's going on, you can see how these people are training, and it's going to help you actually improve and progress with your own training that bit more. So this is something that I've done as well. I would always go out of my way to train in a better gym, in a better environment, to surround myself with people who have similar goals, that set similar standards for themselves. I remember back when I used to PT, I used to wake up, start my PT sessions at 6 in the morning until 11 or 12, and then I would drive about 45 minutes to another gym to actually train with one of my mates, which again, first of all, someone that would push me a lot harder than training on my own, someone that was way ahead of me in his journey as well. And we trained in a place that had much better equipment, much better environment, and that helped me massively to progress with my physique. And again, I would drive 45 minutes back to my gym where I worked with to finish off my day of PT session. So I would always go out of my way to actually be in a better environment and spend time with people that are, again, on the same journey, are going in the same direction, and I know will push me to do my absolute best. So remember that even if your environment isn't perfect right now, number one thing is you can always make the right choice. Secondly, you can always go out of your way to make your environment that little bit better. Surround yourself with people that have similar goals and be in places that are going to be supportive of your goals at the end of the day. So as always, thank you very much for watching and listening. It means the absolute world to me. And as always, if anyone has any questions on anything that we went through here, drop me a message on Instagram and I'll be more than happy to help.